for the UNX News. Extraterrestrials, time anomalies, dimensions, remote viewing, UFOs, UAPs, and USOs, ghostly encounters, abductions, Bigfoot, and more. Your end of the week news source for everything unexplained. Here is your host for the UNX News Podcast, Margie K.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to UNX News. I'm your host, Margie K., and we are here every Friday evening at 6 Central, 7 Eastern. This week, well, actually today, this came out, our latest issue of UNX Magazine, and you don't want to miss this one. If you are an UNX subscriber, with a free subscription, you get a free digital issue of this magazine, and you have the notice in your email right now. So if you check that out, just click on that link and you'll get to read that. It's a really good issue. Also, mark your calendar, October 13th to 15th, 2023 in Kansas City is the UNX Network X-Con. We have a lot of great speakers. Some of them are here from this network, and our keynote speaker is Scott Wolter, and you know him from the TV show America Unearthed. Also, the UNX Media most recent book was just published. It's called Dying to Meet Them by Mindy Toutfest. Do check that one out at unxmedia.com or at Amazon. My guest this evening is Stephen Bassett. He's a political activist, disclosure advocate, and the executive director of Paradigm Research Group, which was founded in 1996 to end a government-imposed embargo on the truth behind extraterrestrial-related phenomena. He has spoken to audiences around the world about the implications of disclosure, the formal confirmation by heads of state of an extraterrestrial presence engaging the human race. He has lectured around the world on the political implications of UAP ET phenomena and given over 1,200 radio and television interviews. PRG's advocacy work has been extensively covered by national and international media, including being featured on CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, and in the Washington Post and New York Times. And now, here on UNX News is Stephen Bassett. Welcome to the program, Stephen.
Hello.
Thank you for joining me this evening.
Mm-hmm.
Have you read every single one of those books behind you?
Absolutely.
I bet you have. Let's start with this evening. How did you get interested in the UFO subject?
Well, when I was a kid, I like science fiction. I watched lots of it, and not surprisingly, therefore, when UFO articles would turn up, and they did, they've been covered by the media really for almost the entire 76 years. I noticed them and read them with interest. In fact, by the time I was 17 or so, I guess, maybe a senior in high school, it was clear to me that, and this was in 1964, it was clear to me that there was an ET presence. It was common sense. I didn't have a bias. I didn't have any reason to think otherwise. Simply taking things as I read them. I particularly recall the 1961, I believe, Look magazine article on Betty and Barney Hill. I read that with great intensity, and I said, "Well, clearly, they were encountered by extraterrestrials." And I assumed that the government would be telling me more about that very soon. Except it didn't. Yeah. And so I went on with my life as much as it was. And as years went by, I would obviously read the odd article here and there. But again, nothing happened. So it was always with me. And it was in 1995 when I decided to make a decision about what to do with the rest of my life, this subject was there. It was hanging there as an option, right? What do I do next? I mean, I could have become a surf bum. I could have, moved to a remote part of the forest and just disappeared. Whatever, midlife crisis actually. And as it happened, I read a couple of books, but one of them changed my life, and that was Abduction by John Mack. I read the book Abduction, and I said to myself, wait a minute. This thing is really coming of age. This is happening. If a Pulitzer Prize winner of that caliber, a Harvard-trained psychiatrist, is actually trying to do work on this, is created an entity to engage contactees, this is significant. This is where I want to go. And so the address and phone number was in the back of the book. I called them up, and through some power of persuasion, I convinced them to let me volunteer. And I went out to volunteer for them for about 4 months. And it was an amazing experience, meeting John Mack, meeting contactees for the first time. But it was a short-term thing. It wasn't really a fit. I wasn't going to be able to go on salary. And so while I was up there, I thought, well, I'm thinking what to do next. And then it just hit me. Boom. It was like a download from the ether. Simple concept. The problem is not science, it is politics. The people in this field that have written the hundreds of books, thousands of books, the hundreds of documentaries have proven this is real and extraterrestrial 10 times over. So therefore, why isn't it being taught in every school? Why isn't it an integral part of our society? Because the government made a political decision in the late 1940s and early 50s that for national security reasons, they were going to say there is nothing to this. And no matter how much proof you pile up in front of us, we don't care. This was a political problem, and therefore it needed a political solution. Okay. Is there an activist movement, a political activist movement trying to get a political solution? No. Is there any formal structures? Is there a political action committee? No. Are candidates mentioning it in their campaigns? No. With the exception of Jimmy Carter in 77, 76. And then it occurred to me, is there a lobbyist? Is there somebody formally signed up as a lobbyist on it? I said, no chance. Well, I know Washington very well. I've lived there in that area my entire life, in and out, in and out. My family goes back to 1920 on my mother's side. I know Washington. I said, look, if I went to Washington and registered as a lobbyist, I'd be the first person to do so. And the Washington Post would find out about that in due course. And when they did, they'd come and talk to me. Flash of genius. And
yeah.
So I put everything together as fast as I could, and I closed out the apartment and whatever, and just piled the stuff on my car and headed to Washington, D.C. I got there on July the 4th, 1996. And I immediately moved in with one of my member of my family. She didn't expect me to be there quite that long, but I stayed 5 years. And I instantly registered as a lobbyist with the House and the Senate. It took the Washington Post about 5 months before they realized that somebody had registered as a lobbyist on the extraterrestrial issue, sequestered technology, the truth embargo, etc. And they go, well, that's the story. And so they sent a reporter out to my office in Bethesda, and we interviewed for 2 hours. They took a giant photo of me, awful photo of me, but holding up John Mack's book, not his book, but the symposium record of his symposium that they held at MIT, and stuck it on the business edition as a section front page, which was the number 2 important front page in the Washington Post. There was
wow,
and there was that, and instantly I had credentials. I was established as the first UFO lobbyist, and that was the beginning of my political engagement of this issue, and that's how it happened. It's that simple.
Have you ever seen a UFO yourself?
Nope.
No. That your dedication to this subject is rare among people who have not had their own experiences. And you mentioned a minute ago that you thought, oh, maybe you had a download. Do you think maybe there was some external influence, or maybe you were picking up some thought waves somewhere telepathically that is what you should be doing?
Meaning no disrespect. My worldview does not entertain or get into some of these exotic areas. I'm pretty basic guy. Physics, Occam's razor, scientific method, and all that. So when it comes to those things, I don't know.
Okay.
But
Strictly
let me,
left brain.
yeah, but let me be clear. Having said that, I'm open to these possibilities. I don't deny them, uh, and I think that the world is more than we know. I also happen to think that ending the truth embargo on the ET presence will definitely open up a new engagement of a whole range of exotic areas that we need to know more about. But I'm a pretty basic guy. So when I say there is an extraterrestrial presence engaging the human race, it's not based upon some somewhat, how would you say, careless worldview or uh,
Intangible.
tendency to jump on anything interesting. I am saying it because it is absolute proven fact, right?
Hmm.
And when it comes to, the world, proven facts are important. And when the government denies them, literally denies them, when it's obvious to everybody what the case is, not bad things are going to happen, and that's exactly what's happened in the last 76 years.
Why do you think the government has denied this for so long?
So, national security matter. It was the timing of it. The timing was not accidental. The ETs, whatever their past history, which I think goes back as far as you want to go to the dinosaurs, frankly. But in ancient times, I think they engaged us quite a bit, but it was of a different type, and they were always gods. In other words, if you're an ET anywhere in the galaxy and you like that, you like being thought of as a god, you came to the Earth. I mean, that's where you came. You just landed. I don't care what civilization it was, South America, Egypt, whatever. You were instantly going to be gods, and that was cool. But that was then. The modern era, they're not gods anymore. And more importantly, uh, the modern era really begins when that bomb explodes over Hiroshima, and everything changed.
What
And
happened?
we, what happened is that the extraterrestrials, which I think monitor us quite well, uh, were became convinced, or it was confirmed to them, pretty much what our intentions were for the 20th century. And the intentions were that we are warlike, and we have been for our entire modern, I guess you could say, that the post flood era. I don't know what was going on pre flood. I don't think it's nearly as interesting as what people think. But simply since the flood, we're talking about 12,000 years, we have been in continuous state of war. That's what we do. We make weapons.
Hmm.
We conduct wars, endless wars, killing hundreds of millions, if not billions, of people over these 10,000 years. Uh, and there is no limit. And when we cracked the atom, came to understand its power, when we learned how to convert that power into a weapon, when they tested that weapon, that was sending a message. But not nearly as powerful a message is when we dropped one of those bombs on a city filled with men, women, and children of our own species and incinerated them. That was a very clear message to the extraterrestrials as to where things were going to continue to go. And they made a decision to alter their engagement of the human race right then and there. And immediately we started having sightings all around the world. And this engagement has manifested itself for the last 70 years. I talk about it. I probably should write about it, but others are better writers than I am. But it is core to what we're experiencing, the connection between the extraterrestrial presence in the modern era and the development of atomic bombs.
Do you think, as far as you know, is there any indication that when we set off an atomic bomb or do testing with it, that that is actually affecting the ETs in some way?
No, no. Interesting theory, but no. The the galaxy is an extremely dangerous place with incredible energy explosions and manifestations of energy all the time. Millions perhaps as many as millions of atomic explosions or hydrogen nuclear explosions occur in our sun every second. No, no, no. It doesn't affect them. We are not a threat to them. We will be a threat to them soon, but we're not a threat to them. We weren't a threat to them when we dropped those bombs. We were a threat to ourselves. Right? Now, to what extent the U.S. government understood this connection early on, I don't know. Probably didn't. But the circumstance at the time, which was very relevant to, I think, their decision making, the ET decision making, were this: that we'd had two major world wars, quite impressive world wars, I should say, and we were going to have a third one. The third one was going to be a nuclear world war, the world war to end all world wars. And the U.S. knew this was likely. They knew what was happening in the Soviet Union. They knew that our atom bomb and hydrogen bomb secrets were in the Soviet hands. They knew they had German scientists, some fine Nazi German scientists. You never want to move forward with your war preparation without some fine Nazi scientists. And they had theirs and we had ours. And they were going to develop missile technology. They were going to develop bombs, and they were going to put the bombs on top of the missiles. And that was the future. And we already had a absolute iron curtain across Europe, as named by Winston Churchill at a presentation, I think in 40, might even have been 47, might have been 49, I forget. So for our national security leaders at the time, which was, of course, Truman and then Eisenhower, their calculation was whatever this ET thing is, wherever it's going, what we might learn from the technology that they had in their hands no later than July of 47 and possibly even sooner, whatever might happen there, given the fact that we were facing down, or soon would be facing down, a nuclear nation that would be happy to annihilate us, and we had our own generals and other high officials wanting to annihilate them, that it might be best to just keep this whole extraterrestrial thing classified until we knew more, until we had a better handle on things. This is not an unreasonable decision. And so that is the beginning of the truth embargo. And at that point, it's not what I consider a serious problem. It's simply a national security matter like many other things. But what happened, I don't think they could have predicted. We did not have a nuclear war, which would have resolved the issue. We wouldn't be having this discussion and debating about whether the government should disclose or not disclose the ET presence, because there would be no society. There'd be no internet. We would be in the dark ages, walking around like the Walking Dead, right? But we didn't have that nuclear war. What we had was a Cold War and a nuclear arms race. And I don't think they imagined that. It's almost impossible to imagine it circa 1947, 1959. That as much as we knew about war, as much as we knew about ideology, as much as we knew about the breach between the East and the West, the idea that from 1946 to 1986, over 40 years, ultimately 8 countries would stockpile 85,000 nuclear weapons, put them on submarines, put them on trains, put them in bunkers, put them on movable platforms, and possibly even put them in space. I do not think they thought the human race could possibly be that stupid. But we were. And so as that awful situation manifested itself, turning or creating what became the meme of my generation. In fact, virtually every living person on the planet, mutual assured destruction. In other words, the only reason you have a tomorrow is because the weapons are so awful, we can't use them. Therefore, there won't be a nuclear war, and you will have a tomorrow. But in case things go badly, you can get underneath your desk at school to
Yeah.
hopefully survive it. I mean, this is the madness that they could not foresee. And so the embargo of the ET presence, from their point of view, right or wrong, absolutely had to be maintained to see how it was going to play out. And as we know, ultimately, we got some treaties, some reduction in weapons. A couple more nations, though, got added to the nuclear circle. We won the Cold War. Our adversary outlawed their awful Communist Party, went capitalist and started creating multimillionaire oligarchs and selling stuff and having stock, brought back religion. And what did we do? We effectuated policies to create a second Cold War and another nuclear proliferation, not so much in the number of weapons, but in the sophistication of the delivery systems.
Mm-hmm.
Madness. And so the truth embargo continued. That's why it started. That's why it remained in place. But the circumstances of the last 20 years, and certainly the last 6 years, the truth embargo finally is collapsing under its own weight and under the weight of the modern era, modern technology, modern communications. It's done. It's a dead policy walking. And the only thing that remains is, can we get out from under that policy with some dignity, some humility, and maybe with a little public relations, so that the American public and generally the world's public will be as understanding as possible when, after their heads of state confirm the extraterrestrial presence, they start having to answer the tough questions, namely, when did you first know there was an ET presence? Was it last year?
Yeah.
1999? No, it was 1947. When did you have ET technology? 1947, maybe 1944. Why didn't you tell us? And that's just the beginning of a plethora of really brutal questions. And everything you see going on now, and seeing and watching and hearing, as I have tried to say to every audience, and I'm doing interviews as fast as I can book them. I have put this into the Washington Post, and they go, like this. Everything you see happening has nothing whatsoever to do with the United States government trying to figure out what this stuff is and let you know. Nothing to do with that. Because the United States government already knows exactly what is going on. Mm-hmm. It has tech. It has reverse engineered tech. It has bodies. It has been spending untold hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars, investigating this phenomena, investigating the science, tracking, and anything else they want to do for 77 years. What is going on is fascinating. And I was going to tell this on News Nation tonight, but at the last minute they apparently had a conflict with a news story and decided they had to postpone my appearance. I'm going, okay, fine. And I sent them a nice email, but I would have been telling them what I'm just telling you. What is going on now is a somewhat scripted, coordinated process.
It seems that way.
In the truth embargo. Not find out about the phenomena, we already know. In the truth embargo. In a way that is constructive, open, helpful, doesn't damage too many people's careers, legacies, right? Mm-hmm. And most importantly, creates a situation where the president can do it, right? End the truth embargo, in a way that makes sense and in a way it's not political. That's what's going on. It is essentially a kind of play. It's not tightly scripted because everybody can't get together and rehearse like you do with a real play, but it's a play with a script that they're trying to follow that leads to the final act and the end, and in the end of the truth embargo. And I totally support it. I'm glad to see it.
I'll tell you what. Yeah, we're going to take a short break now, and when we come back, we're going to talk more about that and the recent hearing, the recent congressional hearing. This is Margie Kate. We'll be back right after these messages. This is Margie Kay inviting you to check out the latest edition of Onyx News Magazine with thought-provoking articles about UFOs, extraterrestrials, cryptids, consciousness, and amazing photos of anomalous objects and more. And there's always a feature article by our managing editor, Lee Spiegel. Get a free digital issue with your free subscription to the Onyx Network, or get a printed copy with your X Club Gold subscription in the U.S. Visit onyxnetwork.com to see details. That's onyxnetwork.com. Are you thinking about purchasing a wood-fired heating or cooking appliance but don't know where to start? The new book, Wood-Fired Heating and Cooking, will guide you through the process and make the decision much easier. Find out about wood stoves, wood-burning fireplace inserts, masonry heaters, cook stoves, brick ovens, and more. Learn about operation and maintenance, buying and storing wood, even how to make your own charcoal. A bonus section includes delicious recipes for cooking in a wood-burning oven, grill, tandoori oven, or smoker. The wise homeowner, prepper, or homesteader will have the ability to heat their home with wood when the power goes out, or to save money on increasing gas bills. Wood-fired heating and cooking is available at Amazon. Visit www.woodfiredpub.com for more information. That's woodfiredpub.com. And we're back. I'm Margie Kay, and this is Onyx News. You're listening to the Onyx Network. And this evening, my guest is Stephen Bassett. Stephen, we were talking about disclosure and this sort of scripted project that seems to be going on. Mm-hmm. Do you think that the recent congressional hearing was a part of that?
Everything's a part of it. Everything. Mm-hmm. The creation of entities at the over the DOD, like UAP task force and the other incarnations that took place, ultimately ending up at AARO, All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office,
Mm-hmm.
the legislation that's being passed, the briefings that are the behind the scene briefings that are taking place, and of course the public briefings of some of the staff, and then the actual hearing that just took place, the first one in 50. All of it is part of this scripted process. And again, I use the word scripted carefully because not every what is going on is involving a lot of entities and agencies and people, and they all kind of know what needs to happen, but they're not able to just get together and be too explicitly cooperative, because that would easily get out there. And so they're just doing their best to get this done. This, I call it a public relations driven extrication process. And history is powerful and messy, and so it's had its twists and turns. But that is what's going on, and that is the message I'm going to keep pounding out as much as I can. In fact, there is a blistering article in The Hill today by my colleague Marek von Rennenkamp. I encourage people to go to The Hill and read it. Right? He couldn't be more explicit. Okay. And later tonight, I am sending the link to that article along with a blistering email to the Washington Post, where I'm basically saying, what in the hell is the matter with you? I've been feeding that information to the Post for 25 years.
Mm-hmm.
They were America's political paper. This is the biggest political news story of all time. And the News Nation and The Hill are eating their lunch while they sit there on their hands. What in the hell is the matter with them? So I'm firing that baby off. And the message that I tried to convey, and I've told it in an interview, an interview private, is, don't you understand? The government already knows what this phenomenon is. This is the end of the truth embargo. All right. So all of this is to try to service this process. Now, what do I mean by public relations? It's what I said before. This is the end of the truth embargo is going to be really tough on the U.S. government. Not as much on other governments, because they're all going to say, and the Western governments are going to say, look, we just went along with the United States. The United States is the economic power. It is the nuclear power. It is the only thing between us and being taken over by the Soviet Union or then Russia or China or whatever else. And so if the U.S. wants to embargo this issue, it's fine with us. And so when our president finally confirms it, hopefully this September, yeah, the nations will follow suit just like that. But we're the nation that's going to face the tough questions, and they're going to be brutal. And so what they're doing, and it's a smart move, is as they realize the truth embargo is toast, and this really comes clear when the group I call the Magnificent 10 emerge in October of 2017, the group that was the advisory group to the Stars Academy of Arts and Sciences. The three most significant, I think, ultimately will turn out to be Elizondo Mellon and Dr. Gary Nolan. At that point, an awful lot of people in government realize it's over. All right, it's just a matter of time. And then what do you do? And so what they're doing is what they should have done in 1948. They had the opportunity. It was perfect. Truman could have easily made the decision, look, we can't keep this from the American people. Let's tell them what we have. We've got a saucer. We've got bodies. Clearly, we're not alone in the universe. There's been other sightings. We're looking into that. We're going to tell you more. Disclosure would have happened in 1948. They could have done it then. They didn't do it. They could have done it again in 1953 after the huge display that ETs put on over the capital of the United States.
Mm-hmm.
Famous events of July of 1952 scared the hell out of everybody. They didn't shoot anything, but they just flew around a lot and made sure that everybody saw them. Unfortunately, the people back then, every single person didn't have an iPhone with a high definition camera. And so there's, at this point,
there were photos.
Not a surviving photo that we know, but they probably are in the archives, but not a surviving photo in the public arena. They could have done it in 53. They didn't do it. They might have done it after the Cuban Missile Crisis. Kennedy was leaning that way. He felt that we came close to a nuclear war, a lot closer than he even knew, I think. Turns out it was much closer than we thought. And then he thought possibly this issue, which he knew was real. Every single president has known that this extraterrestrial presence is here. Every single one. What has varied from president to president is how much they knew, which varied from quite a bit in the case of Truman, I think, and Eisenhower, to very little, but they always knew. They didn't have to be told by the Department of Defense or the CIA. They knew one way or another. And then there's a question how much they knew and how much they wanted to know. And so it's possible that Kennedy saw this issue as a way for the Soviet Union and the United States to collaborate that might help to mitigate the Cold War that was increasingly putting at the risk. But before he could go anywhere with that, he was assassinated. They could have done it and had the best opportunity after the Cold War ended in 91 and the years immediately following. And there was an effort to do that. That was under the Clinton administration starting in March of 93. Rockefeller led it, had the money to back it. Clinton did try to do something, and the Department of Defense just basically said, go away, President, go away, you silly man. We have nothing to do with you, which really made him angry, but has made his wife even more angry. So they didn't do it then, and it took another, essentially from 90, that effort ended in 96, so from 96 to 2017, so we're talking about 21 years, nothing. And then everything changed in 2017. And finally, they realized we have no choice. All right. So what they're doing now is what they should have done. Now, the problem they have is that they have to do this as if it was 1948. They have to,
yes, as if it's a big surprise.
They don't know, we're just finding out. I mean, who knew? Yeah. And that way they won't be hounded with those difficult questions just yet. And so they're playing it out. Now the problem, and the plan, it's not an awful plan, and it's probably the way to go. And I'm not really criticizing this concept, but unfortunate for them, I think in their own minds, as they're contemplating this and gaming it, they didn't expect it to take this long. For one thing, when the idea that let's end this embargo really starts to take shape, they are anticipating a victory by Senator Clinton in the election, and they already knew where she was on this issue. And I had worked very hard to make sure everybody knew where she was in this issue by working out of DC and generating eventually 400 articles, major print media articles, good press, about the connection between that candidate, Clinton, and the issue, the ET issue. And those 400 articles are linked on my website right now.
Wow. And
she had to go on TV, and her husband went on TV, and Barack Obama went on TV, and they all had to say something. But it's okay. I didn't expect them to. She should have. If she had engaged the issue full out, she would have won the election. But I didn't expect her to do that. But I expected her to win. And so when she lost, that set everything back substantially. And then they finally make their move in 17. And it might have gone fairly quickly, except what happened shortly after that? Well, the politics descended into chaos. The worst pandemic in 100 years turns up, which creates not only awful, outcomes for people and medical outcomes, but also huge economic impact. And then before we barely get over that, and we're not over it yet, we have a new war in Europe. Not that a new war is unusual, but this is not just any new war. This is a war where it has been more nuclear threatening and saber rattling than any war, including the Korean War. And so the doomsday clock is as close to midnight as it could be. So it's really dragged it out, but nevertheless, it's not stopped it. The process leading to disclosure has continued and developed. It's just taken a long time. And that has created a problem. because an awful lot of people in this world know the ET presence is real and know the government's known about it for 70 years. A lot of people. You don't have to be a longtime researcher like myself and my colleagues. And so they're watching this with a certain bemusement. Like, come on. Yeah, I mean, what you said that? I mean, you're doing this. You know it already. Why are you going through this act? And that's where I'm trying to help. I know that it's a little odd. I know it creates some cognitive dissonance in their head, and it irritates them, particularly the people that know the truth and they expect it right now. What I'm trying to do is saying, look, chill. All right, the government needs to do it this way because one, it will create a lot of winners. It will allow the Department of Defense and ultimately the armed services and the Congress to participate, do the right thing, show the flag, be nonpartisan, ask intelligent questions. The hearings that are central to this, quote, extrication process will be conducted in front of millions of people. They will be transparent. They will go well. Intelligent questions will be asked. And it is when enough evidence has been presented at these hearings, the Senate Intel hearing should be the next one, that the president, rather than like Clinton having to go get the files or having to go get the evidence and drag it out, right, in order to end the truth embargo, which was not going to work, the president who's sitting back deliberately and trying to stay out of this will be able to step forward in the East Wing of the White House and simply say, I've watched the evidence. I've watched the testimony, as you have. My aides have watched it. My top advisors have watched it. And it's clear to us. It confirms an extraterrestrial presence. Boom. That's disclosure. And then the tough questions begin. So what I'm asking the media to do and what I'm asking the public to do is to step back and do something which is totally appropriate and okay. They need to hold two thoughts in their head at the same time, right? They're not antithetical. Trying to hold two completely antithetical things in your mind at the same time will make you crazy. Everybody knows that, but they're not antithetical. One idea that they should carry with them as they watch all of this is that the United States government and pretty much every other developed nation in the planet has known there is an ET presence and one or more of these governments have had ET technology for 70 plus years. All right. They've spent millions of dollars on it. It's fully classified, being worked on in deep classified USAPs and SAP programs. And they know a lot about it. And they've talked to contactees and the works. That's one idea. And then the other idea is that the government, in order to effectuate a responsible and minimally disruptive end to the truth embargo, has got to go through this process, this ritual, this staged thing, as if they didn't know. All right? Keep those two things in your head and just let it go forward, and you'll be fine. You won't have a nervous breakdown. You'll be all right. And then when disclosure happens, hopefully this September, if Mark Warner will do what he has to do, which is to call those hearings. After that, lots of hearings will begin. And that's when all the hard questions come. And most of the millennials won't care about those answers. And their kids certainly won't care about those answers. It would be like, I don't care what happened in the past. Tell me about the ETs.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about Star Drive. What do you got? What do you got? But a lot of people will be listening to those questions, and they're not going to be happy about it. And some people will be enraged. There will be some people that want to take legal action. But here are some of the questions the government will have to answer probably within 10 days of the end of the truth embargo. They will be answering those questions at the Department of Defense briefing room or their press room, the White House briefing room, very likely at some of the armed services, right? And of course, in the halls of Congress. Question: when did the United States government really know that there was an ET presence? Was it last year? When was it? 1947 or 45 or 43? Oh, really? But you were kind of acting like you just found out. Well, no, we've known since 47. Well, why didn't you tell us then? National security. Next question.
Mm-hmm.
When did you have ET technology that you were dealing with? 47, 45, 43? You've had it all this time? Have you been working on it? Have you been studying it? Maybe re-engineering it all this time? Yes. Why didn't you tell us? National security.
Mm-hmm.
Did any of the science you learned from this, would it have been helpful to us because we're out here 8 billion strong and we got a lot of problems here? Could any of that tech be helpful to us now? Yes. Well, then why didn't we get it sooner? National security. Does the government know that there has been these abduction and contact events going on where people all over the planet, maybe in the millions, are being dealt with independently by extraterrestrials, taken out of their bedrooms and elsewhere and engaged in various ways? Did you know about that? Yes. How long? 52? 58? Why didn't you tell us about that? National security. Why didn't you do something about that? Nothing we could do. You see where I'm going here? I've got more questions. They're awful. They are brutal. And they're going to have only two possible answers to every question they get post-disclosure. And I think they know this, but I just want to remind them. I don't care whether it's a hearing, whether it's answering a question from a reporter on the way to the helicopter, whatever. There's only two answers that people are going to accept. The truth, or cannot discuss that openly at this time. It remains classified, but we will be trying to get that kind of information to you as we declassify much of this information. Those are the only two answers. If some idiot decides, okay, look, we got disclosure out of the way, right? And now we're going to go about our business and get away from us. And if you ask a question, I'm just going to lie through my teeth. That would be a mistake because this isn't 1969. This is 2023, 24. And the entire planet has a iPhone and computer, access to the internet, and are smart, savvy, and they're reading the research from old and getting up to speed. And you try that, and the internet is going to eviscerate you. I don't care if the undersecretary, I don't care if the chief of staff, I don't care if you're the president. You lie about this issue post-disclosure, and the internet will literally rip you to pieces. And I refer now to UFO Twitter as one of the aspects of the internet. I belong to UFO Twitter. It's a pretty cool place to be. American people, the world's people, are not going to settle for any more lies. And so it'll be either the truth or it's classified. And that is the way it should be. And that, of course, is going to be very satisfying to people. That's what you can expect after disclosure. And then we'll see where it takes us. That's what's going on.
It's going to be chaos.
And I hope more people will listen. And I hope the Washington Post will give me a call.
I hope so, too. When they do come out. And I'm thinking, you said September. I'm thinking it might be an October surprise. Perhaps, but anyway, September or October surprise. Why do you think that is the time frame?
Well, first of all, October surprise is a meme that built around a very political thing. It's the concept is that one of the parties will keep some surprise, and this is October before the election, right? This is not an election year.
Right.
And they suddenly throw that out there in order to swing the election. It's just part of politics by other means. Basically, it's awful, and our politics is awful, and it needs to get better. Because life is not getting any easier or less complex. No, the reason it needs to happen is one, based upon the series of events, um, the people are really getting up to speed. The media is jumping on this. Thousands of articles are being written. I've got over 300 that I have to get up on my website in the print media archive. I just can't find the time to load them up. And these are 300 articles triaged from 1,000 articles, because I don't put up everything. I tend to put up most the stuff that's coming from relatively established journalism. Not some of the fringe stuff. Doesn't mean they're not good. Just means that you can't put it all up. So about 300 articles, which will take me up to about 1,000 just for this year alone. And so they've got to continue. They can't just put a pause on this, right? It's like
they've gone too far.
It's like the government coming out and say, look, there's a massive meteor the size of Mount Everest heading for the planet Earth. The implications could be absolutely disastrous. We don't really have anything more to say about that. We'll get back to you, I don't know, 6 months, a year, let you know. No. The horses are out of the barn, the chickens are out of the roost, the cats are out of the bag. They've got to get going here. Now, that's one reason. The second reason is David Grush. David Grush went off script. Now, again, there isn't what I would call a classic script, but there is kind of a script, but it's not like a play. And not everybody is actually aware that they're in a play, and they're operating by their own means. And he went off script. What do I mean? And there's a reason that he did that. He is an insider, of course, but not just any insider. He was involved in the program, involved in the process that I'm telling you about, the creation of the UAP task force, which is part of the public relations extrication project. So they created one, and he was assigned to it. There weren't many. There was a lot of complaints about the fact that there was no staff, hardly at all. And people, why aren't there staff? Why aren't they doing this? Why aren't they doing that? Which gets me back to what I said earlier. The reason they're not doing that is because all of this is a Potemkin village, really. Not unfortunately, but unpleasantly for him, Sean Kirkpatrick doesn't know it, or maybe he does, but he is basically the mayor of a Potemkin village. AARO was not set up to find out anything. It is simply set up to be AARO. It will have plenty to do after disclosure takes place, but for now, it has nothing to do, which is why they've been reluctant to give it money, because they don't want it doing anything yet, right? It's just there to be there. It's part of the structure, which puts him in a very, very awkward position. In any event, Grush was given information appropriately while he was working as a key analyst with the UAP task force back before it became other things. I think he joined it after Rubio formalized it with the legislation of 2020, might be slightly before, because it was kind of hanging around over at the Office of Naval Intelligence. But in any event, he was working there. And some individuals working in a USAP provided information to him. They felt that it was appropriate for them to tell him. And what they told him was they're working on re-engineering crash vehicles. We have many, and we have bodies. And Grush appropriately felt it was appropriate for him to pass that information on through channels, which meant going to the committees, which were being briefed and getting classified reports from the government, from the DoD, under the legislation that was being passed in Congress. And so he provided that information. Apparently, some people weren't happy about that, because the information he provided wasn't just any information. It was big, big time information. It was ahead of the script. And so they started giving him a really hard time. And that proved to be a mistake, because David Grush is a righteous man. We call such men Boy Scouts. He believes in God and country and patriotism and that, and what's right and what's wrong and truth and all that. And so he wasn't happy about being attacked. and he went to the IG. I know he went to the intelligence community IG. I think he also went to the Department of Defense IG. He went there to let them know that inappropriate actions, and there was an action of concern. I think they referred to it as an action of concern or something like that. And of course, in the process, he has to tell the IG's office the information that he's being harassed about, which now the IG's office is being told that there's non-human technology and non-humans in the possession of our government for quite a while. And when he goes to the Inspector General of the intelligence community, the ICIG, he has legal representation. And who is representing Major David Grush? Not only the former Inspector General of the intelligence community, the first one, Charles McCullough, now working for a law firm. I don't know how much serious one could be in that regard. I don't know how more serious that could be. The former IG is representing this whistleblower, which is what Grush believes he is and says he is, and I'll accept that, to the IG. So guess what? Yeah, he got results. He got some relief.
Stephen, unfortunately, we are out of time for this evening. If people want to read, yes.
Oh God.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm used to the 2-hour shows.
Yeah. This is just a 1-hour show. If people want to read your articles and get more information, where do they need to go?
If you go to paradigmresearchgroup.org, you go to resources in the menu, you go down to print media archive, you keep going, you get to the print media archive, and you will see the 15,000 articles that go back to but you'll see the 1,000 articles that are in the process of being put up for just 2023. And you can literally follow the developments of this just by reading the news, just by reading what the mainstream press is doing. Please follow me at Steve Bassett on Twitter, right? Twitter is the most powerful activist tool out there. And believe me, I'm active on it. And you want to follow what I'm doing close and what my colleagues are doing, you want to follow at Steve Bassett, and you want to hashtag UFO Twitter. I am going to be speaking at a major conference in November. That is going to be Stairway to the Stars at the Luxor Hotel. Probably, who knows, 10,000 people will be there. They booked 2,000 rooms. Major event. I'm going to be speaking at the World Ufology Conference in December in Mexico City. I'm open to other invites. I'm involved in a media project that could drop later this year out of Hollywood.
Okay.
I'm doing what I can.
All right.
I can, but my colleagues.
We appreciate all your hard work, Stephen. Thank you so much for being on the show this evening. Well, this is Margie K with NX News. We'll see you here again next week.